What's up, my friends? Welcome back to another video, and today we are taking a look at the orchestration behind the theme that Ryan Leach and I kind of put together. I'm going to break down the complete orchestration and show you the decisions that I make, so hopefully by the end of this you can have some insight into how I kind of choose instruments, how I choose what to put where and why, and then by the end you can take away some of these insights and apply them to your own writing as well. So before we really dive in, I want to put something free in your hands, and this is my guide specifically on how to write music in the style of Disney and Nintendo. Something perfect for something like this. This literally walks you through the 5 steps that the five key areas that both Disney and Nintendo incorporate, like in terms of harmonies, melodies, structure, and all of that, to create that sense of adventure and magic, and how they create that signature sound that is so unique to them. So I want to give you that exact framework step by step, and you can download it absolutely free. So click the first link in the description box and it'll take you straight there where you can download it 100% free as my gift to you. All right, without further ado, let's have a quick listen to this theme so you get a sense of what it sounds like, and then maybe we'll break down the entire orchestration start to finish. All right, here we go. And there we go. That is the entire theme. So hopefully you enjoyed it. It's about a minute long, super short. And what I'll do is I'll actually expand the MIDI here so you can see what this is, what we did here. So yeah, just as a quick clarification, all the tracks up here are the MIDI tracks. Then I basically bounced everything to audio tracks just so I could save on CPU resources and mix it a little bit easier. And then I did the track colors and all of that. You'll notice there are a couple of MIDI tracks here though still, and these are the actual contact patches, simply because when I try to bounce the contact tracks themselves to audio, it creates a very mono sort of sound, and I don't know why, so I just keep these as MIDI just for the sake of it. But yeah, let me kind of walk you through really quickly what we're doing here, and I think we'll go from a more overview perspective. So like in terms of melodies, what instruments do we choose, and then harmonies, and then the entire rest of the texture. So in terms of melodic stuff, at the very beginning, let's start with the intro. What brings us in right away? It's the horns, right? It's the 6 horns, articulations. And this, in a way, this is actually doubled. Let me expand this a bit further here, just a tiny bit. Maybe that, there we go. These 6 horns articulations, which are actually the 4 horns from CSB, Cinematic Studio Brass, I basically used this patch to activate the short notes because they have very crisp shorts. So I basically used it to go da-da-dun, and then that last note, dun, kind of died away a little bit. But then I used Cinebrass to hold that last note, you know? So it kind of sounds like this. And let me see if I can just solo those two. So we have the 6 horns articulations, but we also have the 4 horns from Cinematic Studio Brass. So it just sounds like this. And if we just listen to Cinematic Studio Brass, it just sounds like this. So you see how that dun, that very last note dies away pretty quickly. But for Cinebrass, we get that a little bit longer. So I just wanted to extend the tail of that last note a little bit more. So that's why I did that. And that's basically how I did the intro with these 4 chords. Hold, 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 and then it goes into the theme after that. But in terms of the mic positions, I basically use the mix mic from both libraries. Let me actually see if we just take a look at these 2 tracks. Did I apply any processing on them? So for Cinematic Studio Brass, I did apply an external reverb. So I used spaces 2 from East West, and then I turned up the dial quite a bit to have that reverb applied to the brass, just to kind of match the tone of Cinebrass a bit. But luckily, they do sound similar enough so that they can layer together pretty convincingly. And then what else did we have? So the brass are leading the way here, and then the trumpets come in the second half a little bit. Dun, 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 dun. And then those last 2 chords, right, they kind of play at the same time. So no trumpets yet, and here they come. Right, and that's also with the Cinematic Studio Brass trumpets as well. Dun, 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 dun. So I layered Cinebrass with Cinematic Studio Brass for the trumpets there as well. And then let's take a look at the remaining tracks here. So the high strings legato are just serving the purpose of playing that high da, 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 da. So it gives you that glossy sheen on the very top. So it sounds like this. So yeah, super simple. So if you take it away, now you notice you can hear the string ostinato on the very top, but that sheen, that gloss is kind of lost. So that's the purpose of that. Then I basically used some of these other strings, like violins, and to basically play that ostinato. So let me see if I can solo that actually. There's this ostinato, right? Just repeating that same pattern over and over, and basically it only changes when the chord itself changes. And you want that to make sure that it matches the piece and the chords that are playing at that certain moment. Then we have violins 2. Let's see what that's doing. Let's see if it's doing anything. Violins 2. Nothing here. Okay. So we only layered it in the theme actually to give it more depth and texture. So we can take that away. Let's see what else the other ones are doing. So there's the ostinato, there's that glossy sheen, and then we had some tremolos. And it's very, very quiet, but you can kind of hear it. So it's kind of right there, right? And then the main effect here is the Hollywood Winds runs going up and down. So these are the major scales that I kind of activated just to keep that momentum going throughout the intro. And then rise up into the theme. So with that, it sounds like this. So you can hear those scales running up and down, right? And then I use tuba, bass trombone articulations like the shorts to emphasize those downbeats, those D flat pedal points. And then the harp glissando are used to kind of grow with the woodwinds into the big downbeat here. So let's see if we can just solo those up. Solo, where's the harp? Harp is here. And then we have, let's actually hear all of the percussion as well. So it should sound like this. Right, there's that big crash. Then we have the timpani kind of swelling. And with that harp glissando that leads into the theme, you get that nice big swell. But the percussion is definitely making way for the other sections to do the work as well. So there's not that much going on there in the percussion just yet. So that's basically the theme. The intro is that main theme with the horns and the trumpets kind of interacting. And then you have the strings kind of glossing that very top with the woodwinds playing runs and stuff and tremolos to fill in that higher texture as well. Then the theme is a little bit different because here we start to have that rhythmic aspect, that very Nintendo like da 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 sort of thing, right? So those elements that are comprising that are the 6 chords articulations. So let me solo that up. Here we go, that's one. And then we also have the snare drum that's providing that rhythmic value. So snares. And what else? We have the string staccato. So in addition to the brass, I also wanted the strings to do that too. So string staccato, there we go. And what else? Low string staccato. So yeah, the string staccato is kind of doing the mid-range. The low string staccato is doing the bottom, just the bass notes. And then we also have the Hollywood Wind staccato that I layered in there afterwards. But let's just have a listen to this. So you see they're all playing that same rhythm, but they're filling in the middle there. Let's bring in those Hollywood Winds staccatos. I basically used the Hollywood Wind staccatos to essentially double the regular string staccatos. So if you take a look at the MIDI data, this is what the Hollywood Wind staccatos looks like, and then the horn staccato or sorry, the string staccato looks the exact same, right? With slightly nudged earlier because of delay compensation, but there we go. So it's essentially the same thing. I just wanted a bit more texture and breadth in those string staccatos, hence why I brought the woodwinds in the second half there. So let's have one more listen to that. That provides this really nice foundation, but it also gives you that harmonic base to support the melody on top of. Okay, let's bring in the rest. Right? And so here, let's have a listen to the melody. As the cellos, right? And the reason we don't want too much going on here is because the cellos are playing in a relatively middle C register range. So they don't sing out or protrude that much, which is why I wanted to make sure the rest of the arrangement wasn't stepping on its toes. So you can see here, all the high string stuff, I wasn't really doing anything. All the brass and stuff wasn't doing that much. Just, again, those bup stuff, just the rhythm. And yeah, the rest is relatively sparse here as well. Just to, again, give the energy, but not so much, because the energy is going to increase later in the piece. And then I have the occasional woodwind line. Here's the oboe that comes in with a kind of a response. And that kind of fades out and does more counter melodies, right? But it essentially leads into where the violins start to take over, violins 1 and 2, or more like violas and violins 2, actually, because violins 1 is doing the ostinato, I believe. Let me check. Oh, actually, no. Here it's actually taking over the melody. So let's see what violins 2 is doing. So they're playing the same thing, and now the violins 2 is double the third below. And let's maybe hear all of the strings, just to see. So we got the violas doubling an octave below to strengthen the melody. And really quickly, before we move on, why don't I quickly share the sample libraries that I'm using here, so you get a sense of the exact patches and maybe the settings that were used here. So for the Cinematic Studio strings, we typically think of those as really good legato strings, but I definitely wanted to give them more of that military feel, hence why I used the marcato articulation. I also used the marcato articulation for the ostinati, I believe, because it adds that bit of spiccato to the beginning of the note, so it gets that nice attack that you don't get from the regular legatos. But yeah, for the piano, I used Cine Piano, which I didn't end up using in the final thing, but it was just good for a sketch tool. There's the low string staccatissimo, again, that provides that rhythm, the high strings legato that we just talked about at the beginning in the intro. Then we have the first violins, again, that marcato articulation using the mixed mic position. There's the woodwind tremolos and the major scales for the woodwinds, woodwind runs. 6 horns, ensemble articulations from Cinebrass core, trumpets as well, right? There's the tuba bass trombones providing that low foundation for those emphatic moments. Harp glissandi, and then cineperc, so timpani, bass drums, snares, cymbals, of course, glockenspiel for that magic, and then the tubular bells for that cinematic feel. And then I think I used a few more libraries here, so let me just see. Let's take a look at the second contact instance. So you can see I started off with a flute. So here I'm using more woodwinds. Solo flute, solo oboe, solo bassoon. Then we have the cellos and violas. So yeah, these are more to accentuate the melody or pass off the melody to these sections. So yeah, cellos, violas, and second violins. You notice how they're all using their marcato articulation. Trombone ensemble articulations from Cinebrass for more rhythmic elements, more punch. And then arrayas, that's the string staccato right here, string staccato. Cine strings runs to complement the Holly Woodwinds runs. Bonus Vivaldi tremolo, this is from Cine Orc, and that creates this really nice tremolo effect that builds that energy into the next section. Cinebrass 2 horns ensemble true legato, filling in the pads in the middle in some places. Cinematic Studio brass with the 4 horns and the 2 trumpets patches. Harp glissandi ad lib, which I believe I used at the very end, but I'll show you that soon. And then Hollywood Winds 2D staccato. We looked at that already. And then the solo bassoon as well. So kind of like a full woodwind section, some brass patches, lots of strings, of course, and percussion as well. So a pretty well-rounded suite of instruments there. But yes, so aside from these rhythmic elements, sorry. We have the violins, we have the oboe taking over, but essentially that's it for the main theme. So let's have a listen one more time. So you hear the cellos coming in, performing this theme. Then the violin takes over, and the viola is an octave below. Then they go into harmony, and then the trumpets accentuate those last 4 notes. Now, violin 1 goes back to ostinato. Main reason for this is because the brass is now taking over the melody. So we have the 4 horns from Cinematic Studio Brass, but also the trombone articulations from Cinebrass. So it gets that punchy, brassy sound that layers together beautifully. So timpani hits, right? So there, this part I really enjoy. So as soon as the melody holds this longer sustained note, and before I switch the ensemble to a different instrument, switch the melody to the trumpets, I want to have one more rush of energy. So what we do here is you hear the bass drum, and then you hear the timpani hit, and then the crash as well, the simple crash. And the woodwind run basically rushes to meet that simple crash at the very top. So if you ever listen to this, right? And as soon as that simple crash hits, you also get that woodwind run hitting the very top. Just a decision there. I just heard it in my head and I really wanted to try it out, and I like how it turned out. So yeah, that's basically it for that. And then the trumpets take over. Here again, we have the Cinematic Studio Brass with the regular Cinebrass trumpets as well. So let's see how that sounds. 2 trumpets and 4, sorry, did not mean to do that. 2 trumpets here, and the, where's the trumpets arc? There we go. Have a listen to this. So let's see what each track is doing. So Cinebrass is doing. So yeah, it has that nice punch to it, but I think I just wanted a little more meat in general, so. Yeah, so Cinematic Studio Brass has that slightly more creamy tone, less brassy, less harsh. So I just used that to layer the melody on top a little bit more to double with the main theme. So then together they sound like this. You hear that main theme, that melody, a little clear, right? It protrudes a little more. So. And then we get that rhythm coming back. And then just to look at this suspense moment, or this crescendo into the main theme again. We have the violins playing that melody. Da, 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 da. Notice we have the Woodwinds tremolos happening here as well, making sure I ride that mod wheel a little bit. String runs and Woodwind runs again, playing that major scale. And then we have the trumpets. Da, 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 da. That's the main melody there. Playing polyphonic legato, timpani roll, right? Cymbal roll into the crash. Of course, we get the other elements like snares and the trombones, string staccatos. Those are all reintroducing that main da-da-da-da-da rhythm to lead us back into the main theme. And then a harp glissando to lead us back into there. So this is kind of an E-flat type of glissando that's going back and forth, like just to increase that momentum. So. And now violins, of course, have the melody. And we have the full cellos as well, so we get all the strings here. Let's have a quick listen. So you hear those low strings on the bottom preparing that harmonic foundation, right? Whereas the violins 1, violins 2, violas, and cellos, those are all voiced to accentuate all of the chord tones in a sustained manner to really carry that theme forward. So now we're using strings for the melody instead of brass. Just a little bit different. Snare going, we get timpani going. And then here we have the same string melody going, but I also wanted to add in some brass as well. So let me just see here. Yeah, here you can see the trumpet articulations. I added that in, dun, 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 just to add that in. And then this horns, I kind of wanted to bring in some counter melody, some call and response. So if we have a listen to this, let me find the 6 horns patch here. Have a listen to this. So. right? So they're basically responding to the main theme. So with that together, dun, 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 then they come in together. And then right here, you hear that dun 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 dun. Let's find out what that is actually. I believe that's still the six horns articulations. Yeah. Dun 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 dun. And then crescendo. Right, so now we have the six horns playing this huge chord. You can see, like 4 notes at a time. So this is a full D, F sharp, A, D. Basically an extended voicing for the D major chord. And then the E major chord is the same thing, but just up a step. So, and we have the strings taking up the upper register. Then more rhythm. And yeah, that very end is basically all the brass playing together, all the, strings kind of playing those staccattissimos as well, and just bringing it all up. So generally, let's take a quick look at this overall view, right? I always start from the melody first. I kind of decide, what do I want the melodic instrumentation to be? So I knew that in the theme, when the main theme comes in, I knew I wanted the cellos. I knew I wanted the strings to kind of introduce us. So I knew that because they don't protrude as much as the brass, the arrangement itself should be more pulled back. It should be a little bit more sparse to give room for that cello to come through. And then when the violins take over in the second half of the theme, because they're higher, they tend to reach our ears a little bit more easily. We can hear them. So then the other instruments can start to come in a bit as a result, right? Because there's more room to play with. Then in the second half, in the development, then we switch to the brass to play the main theme, which switches up the main color. But again, it removes some of those brass instruments for accompaniment roles. So I use some other tools instead. I use percussion, I use string ostinatos, right? I balanced it out with the other sections. And then when the theme came back, it went back to the strings. And then at the very end, we got everything coming together. Strings, brass, woodwind runs, tremolos, everything like that. So one more time, let's just have an entire listen to the whole thing. We'll look at the MIDI, we'll see how that kind of works. And then, yeah, we'll wrap up, so. Tubular bells, you can hear they're just providing decoration on those offbeats. Glockenspiel there with the tubular bells. Now it's brass, trombones, horns, trumpets time, higher octave. Momentum builds back up with this tremolos, strings, everything. Now string melody, horn counter melody, response. Glockenspiel, tubular bells there again. Horn counter melody, then everything builds. Strings and brass, rhythm. Yeah, and that brings up one more question. It's like, when it comes to layering and doubling, how do you decide what instruments to double? And I think ultimately it comes down to an understanding of the timbres of those instruments. Like, what qualities do those instruments create? Like, string shorts make it feel like it's tugging. It makes it feel adventurous and rhythmic. Whereas when it's brass playing those staccatos, it's more military in a way. It's more blaring. It's more fun, I guess. Like, come up with some words maybe so that you can vocalize what these sounds mean to you and how they affect you and how you would feel about them layering together. So the beautiful thing about sample libraries, right, is that you can layer them however you want. You can literally experiment because this technology is made for you that way. And Kontakt makes it very easy to do that. So especially near the end where I wanted to double some of those textures together, like, I knew I wanted to double the strings with the brass because they blend together in a very nice way. And because the entire texture is coming together in a more cohesive manner, all the other instruments can start to build up as well. Of course, in their respective ranges, so you don't get too much frequency masking. But all those choices were quite deliberate because I kind of have an innate understanding or innate instinct of how I know I want those instruments to sound. and how they will work together. So no matter what sample libraries you already own, definitely experiment with them. Start to understand how those particular libraries sound, and then see if you can blend them together in a way that really makes it work and sounds like a full cohesive orchestra. So if I have cinebrass and cinestrings, the plus side is that I know they're recorded in the same room and they're probably mapped in a very similar way in terms of articulations, legato, etc. So if I blend those together, then I'm going to hear the brass and the strings together. And they do this in real life all the time, brass and strings playing together, or strings and woodwinds, strings and brass. So it makes a lot of sense to try this as well in sample library land. And while you might not get perfect results objectively, I would just aim for good enough, something that I'm happy with, that to share with the world. And that's the whole point of music making, is to put out something that you enjoy, not to overthink things, not to overcomplicate and be a perfectionist, but just to get the work done that you want done and then just share it. And that's it. So that's essentially a quick look into this orchestration of this piece. If you have any specific questions, let me know. I'll try to help out if I can there. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. In case you are interested, again, in kind of writing music in the style of Disney and Nintendo, because I know a lot of people have mentioned this really sounds like a Super Mario Galaxy piece or a Super Mario Galaxy type of arrangement, which is my favorite game, by the way, and soundtrack. So no surprise there. Definitely check out the free guide on how to write music in the style of Disney and Nintendo. So we'll walk through those 5 essential steps and techniques to go from your initial ideas, but how to actually make them a little bit more complicated, what those companies are doing specifically to get that magical, unique sound that is very special. I want to share that with you absolutely free. So if you click the first link in the box below, it'll take you straight there where you can download that guide and you can read it right away. Thank you so much for watching, my friend. I'll catch you in the next one, and take care. Bye-bye.